Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sudden Wealth. I apologize a bit for the lighting today. I had to replace one of my lights here, so the quality is not perfect, but tomorrow or the day after should be perfectly fine. Once again, I do hope you had a very good week and that you have some very good plans over for the weekend. Now, I wanted to address something. And by the way, if you do enjoy the content, please consider dropping that like and subscribe. It greatly helps the channel. You may recall that a few months ago, everyone was discussing the banks, commercial real estate, liquidity crisis, stock market crashes, all of that. And I said, one of the places I thought maybe you would have an unexpected downturn would be China. Most of all because people think that China is the next US and they can do anything wrong, and basically it's a matter of time before they supersede the US, become the number one economy, yada yada yada, so everyone knows about it. And the thing is, I always thought that China could create a massive problem for the world. Now the question is why, right? Why is everyone so convinced that China is going to supersede the US? So the reason is actually quite simple. Economists make forecasts based on historical data. So what they do is actually quite simple. They look at the past 30 years or 20 years or 10 years and they extrapolate for the future on average the same average growth in the past, maybe up or down 2 plus minus 2%, and that's about it. They don't pay attention to the fact that the stock market in China peaked in 2015 or 16, and it never recovered. They don't pay attention to the fact that the demographics in China peaked in 2011. What that means is, if you look at the workforce divided by the total population, it has peaked in 2011 in China and is continuously going down. Nobody paid attention to it. But most importantly, that accumulation of debt in order to grow super quickly has been outrageously bad. And the question becomes, why do they do it? Well, since they have a dictatorship, they cannot allow to have normal business cycles. Business cycles and recessions in particular are crucial parts of the cycle. One of the reasons why the US and Europe has experienced so poor growth is because after 2008, we stopped allowing failure. Failure is as important or more than success. When times are good, people make extravagant investments. Some of them work well, some of them work not so well. Those ones need to be fleshed out. But you see, the problem is that creates a recession, that creates unemployment. And politicians don't want that because they want to be reelected. Now, don't get it wrong. Over time, that is the right solution. You need certain companies in certain industries to flourish and others to collapse. So the ones we get left are the good ones. So basically, the employees don't waste their time. The companies don't gather funding and buy assets in dying businesses. They should move on to do something more productive. But we also stopped allowing it, and that's the reason why we print so much money and we have such bad growth. If you want a perfect example, look at Japan. They never stop printing, not even with high inflation, and their average growth in 30 years is 0%. That's the reason. Now in China it's the same reason, but it's a bit different. It's completely intolerable to have recessions. For example, in our countries, if you do have some recessions, you can always elect somebody else if you think that that person is to blame for. But in China, no. In China, there's a Faustian bargain between the people and the government. So the government says you have no freedom, but your standard of living grows through time. And the Chinese accept it. So if there is a crisis, which is natural, the Chinese people may go and, why are we living in a dictatorship if we have no prosperity? At least let's have some elections. which of course the government of China doesn't want. So what that led to was an unprecedented money printing, debt creation, building things for no one, that to the point that now they have what is called ghost towns where nobody lives. In terms of real estate, actually, if you do some research, it's quite scary. It's more than 20%, I think it's about 22%, of all the homes in China are unoccupied. Nobody lives there, nobody goes on vacation there. They're just condos. Now the question is, why are they building them? Because the government pretty much told the builders, you just build, we back you up in case anything is needed. That's it. And because there's building, there's purchasing of materials, there's construction, there's new assets, so the GDP goes up. Problem is, as I just said in the beginning, their population has peaked. So that means that they could, and they are already 65% urbanized, and if they have 22% unoccupied, that means they can get to 87% urban without building one single condo anymore. What is the problem of this? Because it's a dictatorship, they attract no immigrants. You see, if you look at the case of Europe, the south and the north is very different. Why? Because migrants go from the south to the north. So the south is aging, their demographics are completely terrible, but the Nordics, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, these kind of countries attract a lot of migrants within Europe and outside of Europe. So their demographics is not so bad. Now China is betting everything on technology, but their problem is whatever ratios you look at the US, for example, debt to GDP, private debt, all of these things, which are terrible in the US, don't get me wrong, they are in orders of magnitude worse in China. And what China is trying to do is to let certain things fail kind of in a controlled fashion. So instead of something just collapsing and trillions of dollars disappearing, they're trying, or trillions of yuan in this case, they're trying to let certain things go bankrupt. That's why you see Evergrande defaulting, that's why you see here and there some own builders defaulting without being saved. So they are trying to do it. Problem, they are already touching deflation. Why? Because they print, let's say, 1 trillion yuan, but if one of these big players go bankrupt, that can have an effect of 10 trillion yuan being destroyed, which means it ends up being deflationary. And governments hate deflation because they don't know how to tax it. And the problem is, and this is what happened, is they are already printing money once again. And the next ones in line will be Europe. Germany is in recession, the Netherlands is in recession, France is about to go into recession. And the reason for it is very simple. We've accumulated so much debt over the last 13, 14 years, in the case of China, 40 years, that we can no longer let things go down, because things can turn into a Great Depression extremely quickly. So what do I think they're going to do? If they could, they would raise rates, keep them raised, and hope nothing happens. Because we don't live in La La Land, of course something starts to break, which means they will resume printing. Why? Inflation is good for the debtors. Who are the biggest debtors in the world? Governments. Very simple. The money they need to return is lower than the money they need to get. Who banks governments? Extremely wealthy people. What do wealthy people have? Assets. What do assets do? Resist inflation. What happens to the middle class and poor people? Yeah, sorry, too bad. Also, we don't matter that much. Unfortunately, it's the reality of the world. But in any case, that's why I was thinking China, way back when, back in 2018 or something, I was already hearing these stories about China overtaking the world, and I was always very suspicious of it. And apparently now that I go on CNBC, etc., now everyone finds problems with China, on YouTube as well. Now everyone finds issues with China. Yeah, but they were knocking on the door of the banks and the commercial real estate, right? Not so long ago. But in any case, I think it's just a funny take and my perspective on China. I don't think they will overtake the US at all. I do think they'll probably be one of the main countries affected by an upcoming crisis without any doubt. So thank you very much, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.